Okay, we are live on YouTube. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for our seventh and final online public participation session for the District of Sechelt budget. To date, we have reviewed presentations on the sewer operating and capital budgets, as well as budget requests for all departments and Sunshine Coast Tourism, the RCMP, and the Sechelt Library. Today will include an overview of public engagement for the 2021 budget process and a summary of what we've heard through questions and comments from our citizens, as well as some highlights from the surveys that have completed. This will be followed by an overview of sewer capital and operating requests and the recommendation from the Committee of the Whole to Council that took place at the Special Committee of the Whole meeting on March 31st. On the line today, we have our Mayor Sievers, Councillor Tom Lamb, Director David Douglas, and Communications Manager Julie Rogers. Here, looks like we have no members of the public currently in attendance, but hopefully we will get some people. Oh, and there's Director Kern Dillon has just joined us as well. Hopefully people will look at our YouTube recording and catch up if they weren't able to make our lunchtime session today. With that, I will share my screen and jump into the, I should introduce myself, Carrie Ann Colson, Executive Assistant. So with that, I will share my screen and we will jump into the public participation overview. So just wanted to start off by thanking Mayor and Council for providing us with the opportunity to do more engagement than we have ever done for the budget process before. In past years, there has always been a low turnout at public meetings, especially the online ones, and we were hoping to engage people electronically as much as possible, especially considering the current public health restrictions. So our strategy was to provide as many opportunities for citizens to provide input and ask questions, using as many platforms as possible by abiding with the public health regulations. The other goal was to ensure that Council received input from members of the public before finalizing the budget, which brings us to where we are today. Our strategy included sharing information through radio ads, newspaper ads, news releases, social media posts, presentations at public meetings, as well as receiving questions and comments through email, letter mail, phone. We had online surveys as well as hard copy paper surveys available at the library, and online public participation opportunities. So the two ways to engage in dialogue with Council was to join the question and answer period, which follows each of our public meetings, and then online public participation sessions like this one were scheduled in at noon. We had 5 noon sessions and then 2 evening sessions as well. So to date, we have put out 2 radio ads, 4 ads in our local newspapers, and 3 listings in our municipal memo, 2 news releases, 2 alerts were sent out through our Sechelt Citizen app, which is received by 1,321 subscribers currently, 29 social media posts, which have been viewed by over 16,000 people. We also created 11 new web pages to share information, which have seen 710 hits since December when we launched those. There have been now 6 presentations at public meetings, and the recordings of those are all available on YouTube. If you go to sechelt.ca and visit our council calendar, you'll find the link to our YouTube page as well. In addition, all of the community associations were contacted in November of 2020 and were encouraged to provide feedback either verbally or through email. That information was provided to Council on a separate report on the November 25th Committee of the Whole meeting as well. This is our seventh and final public participation session. We've had a total of about 10 members of the public join all 7 of those collectively. And when we prepared the presentation, there had been a total of 182 views on all of those recordings as well, which averaged about 36 views per session. So we've certainly seen more engagement through this process this year than we have in the past, and I think we've learned a lot, and we'll definitely continue to evolve our strategy for next year as well. So the timeline for public participation for the budget process starts in 2020 and actually in the summer. So August, September of 2020, staff established the base operating budget for the following year, and new operating expenses and one-time expenses are also identified. So the base budget just covers the service levels that we maintain on a regular basis year to year. So that covers things like wages, road repairs, sewer treatment, and other services that are ongoing. The new and one-time may involve service level changes, or they may cover required cost increases such as cost of living, wages, cost of supplies, and utilities that are out of our control. At that time, capital budget requests are also identified. September to October, staff met with community associations and collected the budget requests from those groups. And then November to December, the draft budget requests from the community associations were presented to the committee of the whole. Website content was updated, and we began putting out some public information through news releases on the website. Looking into 2021, we kicked off the year with some council workshops to establish the big picture strategic priorities that are currently guiding our budget deliberation process. The sewer operational and capital budgets were presented to the committee of the whole, and we issued I forgot to mention, in December, we issued our first survey, which was the sewer survey. Parks was issued in January, and we also started with ads in the local paper, radio ads, and 5 social media posts. From February to March, 4 additional surveys were launched, and we held 6 public participation sessions, including 4 daytime and 2 evening sessions during that 2-month period. We also had 17 social media posts go out. For April, we are conducting our final public participation today, and we'll definitely make sure to share the information when the final budget and decision-making process is completed, so that everyone will be aware of the outcome. What we heard, there were several priorities that formed themes throughout our engagement process this year, including the protection of infrastructure and municipal assets was a big one. Looking for innovative cost savings approaches was another really important thing that was brought up by our citizens, including many really helpful suggestions that we received through our surveys and some of the other communications that we received. So those have been received by staff, and we are definitely looking to integrate as many of those as we can into our ongoing operational processes. Long-term planning, also important. Road safety, a critical item that we definitely have to take seriously from year to year. Improvements for our public spaces, such as playgrounds, parks, trails, and beach accesses, was another really big one. Our citizens are really enjoying the active environment that we have, and keeping those well maintained and available for everyone is definitely something that was seen as very important through this engagement process. There were also many suggestions to take advantage of grants to reduce the need for tax increases as much as possible. Delaying projects that were not critical for this year to reduce the need for tax increases was also something that several people had suggested. So looking at our surveys, we launched 6 surveys from December to March, and they were, we received different response levels for each of them. So the sewer system survey received 87 responses, Parks was 125, Public Works 37, Arts and Culture received 93, Planning and Development 21, And Protective Services received 47 responses when we closed those surveys on March 19th. The objective of the surveys was to allow citizens to identify service areas that are important to them and to provide an opportunity for members of the public to provide input to council for their consideration during this budget process. A total of 410 surveys were received from all 410 responses were received from all 6 surveys. Survey responses were limited to 1 per IP address, but it is important to note that the number of respondents for each survey represents less than 1% of Sechelt's population, and so should not be considered statistically significant. Some of the big takeaways from the sewer survey, when asked if citizens thought that Sechelt needed a publicly accessible Sani station for motorhomes and campers to dispose of sewage, 77% were in support of a shared Sani station. And we did get some great news. Recently, we got a grant to cover the cost of construction of the Sani stations. So now we are in the process of looking for options and designs for that project. When asked if citizens would be willing to support a district-wide sewer expansion by paying a fee, considering if all properties contributed $166 per year, it would add $1 million to our annual budget. 30% of respondents indicated that they would be willing to pay $166 per year or more. 40% of the respondents prefer not to consider sewer expansion programs in 2021, including 26% who felt that it should not be considered in the 5-year financial plan at all. When asked whether they would be interested to find out how much it would cost to produce and distribute reclaimed water that can be used for outdoor watering of lawns and gardens, pressure washing, 62% agreed and strongly agreed out of those 87 responses. The park survey was the next survey to be launched. It was open from January 12th to March 19th and received 125 responses. 78% of the respondents were in favor of maintaining existing service levels for the maintenance of our gardens, hanging baskets, planter boxes, community art, and other decorative features in our public spaces. This question also included 60 comments and suggestions on how to further improve our parks and public spaces. We received many suggestions on ways to decrease the amount of garbage or address the amount of garbage and litter that is sometimes found in our public spaces. When asked for ideas on how we could reduce garbage, vandalism, and graffiti in our parks, 74 comments were received, including suggestions to increase signage, fines, add surveillance cameras, as well as several suggestions to add more staff to do litter pickup patrols and enforcement for littering. Hackett Park was the most well-used playground according to our survey results, with 55% of the respondents indicating that they used that park, followed by Friendship Park at the Trail Bay Pier with 32%. 41% of respondents do not use Sechelt playgrounds, according to the survey results. 23% were not in support of increasing taxes to upgrade playgrounds either. When asked if they play court sports, 54% of respondents indicated that they play pickleball, with 22% playing tennis and 12% playing basketball. When asked if they would like to see improvements or additional courts built in the future, 79% of respondents said yes, and 46 commented to suggest that we need more pickleball courts in Sechelt. When asked if Sechelt needs more lights and decorations, 71% of respondents said no. Looking at the Public Works survey, this one was open from February 1st to March 19th and received 37 responses. The survey included 21 questions to gather feedback from community members on roads, drainage, sidewalks, wharfs, community facilities, and other services. When asked if there are areas where more pedestrian-controlled lighted crosswalks would be helpful, 62% of respondents said yes, with the top locations suggested as They were both on the highway, one at Toledo and Trail Avenue, and the other at Davis Bay waterfront near the pier. And those are both locations that council has recently been advocating for some time to ask the ministry to take a look at some safety improvements in those areas, including controlled lighted crosswalks. When asked about priorities for paving, 89% of respondents felt that downtown laneways and other gravel roads should not be a priority over other areas. 95% were satisfied with the current level of service for snow removal. And a great shout out to our public works crews who do a great job with that year after year. 67% of respondents indicated that the current level of maintenance for ditches and road right-of-ways was satisfactory, and 80% felt that their street was lit well enough. The Arts and Culture survey was the second most responded to survey. It was open from February 4th to March 19th and received 96 responses. The survey included 15 questions to receive input from respondents on local cultural places, events, and priorities for district-funded arts and culture programs, as well as barriers that might limit people from attending or participating in arts and cultural activities. Top priorities for respondents were libraries, festivals, and events. And the barriers that were considered, the top one was that people were not interested in what was offered, or that they weren't aware that the event was taking place. However, cost and timing were factors for some as well. When asked what other arts and cultural amenities Sechelt needs, several responses were to increase the representation of Sechelt and Indigenous arts in Sechelt. 12 respondents suggested improvements to outdoor public spaces. 10 respondents suggested a new indoor cultural facility, such as a large performing arts theater. And 5 respondents said that felt that funding for arts and culture would be better spent in other operational areas for the district's budget. The Planning and Development Survey was open from February 11th to March 19th and received 21 responses. Considering that an extensive community consultation process is already underway to gather feedback on the proposed zoning bylaw changes, the budget survey for planning included 5 questions intended to collect input on preferences related to planning and development in Sechelt for council's consideration when they were reviewing staffing requests. So it was focused on the staffing side. A couple of general comments that were received in the open text fields included encouraging council to consider waiting for the Central Coast Regional District to establish a stable water supply to meet regional growth expectations before allowing more development in Sechelt. 72% also believe that developers should contribute to affordable housing, while 28% believe that help for affordable housing should come from senior levels of government or housing societies. And there is lots of work happening in that area currently in Sechelt already. When asked if respondents would support a consistent building design theme for the downtown core, 37% said yes, with 63% preferring that building owners provide their own design ideas. When asked if they would be in support of an increase to taxes by $14 for 2021, $5 for 2022 and 2023 to help streamline the district's building permit process, 52% were not in favor of the increase, and 29% preferred that permit holders cover these costs. Our final survey for this year was on protective services, and this included the RCMP and bylaw enforcement officers for the District of Sechelt. When asked what should be the most important priority for district bylaw enforcement officers, monitoring and cleanup of illegal dumping was the number 1, with neighborhood noise as the second. The following areas also were included as areas of concern. Those were investigating dog complaints and helping lost pets get back home, backyard burning, property maintenance, parking and abandoned vehicles, as well as support and education for provincial health orders. In addition, 68% of survey respondents believe that the busiest times for bylaw enforcement officers would be on weekends after 4:30 p.m. Some comments received from this survey addressed the following areas that monitoring and enforcement of short-term rental accommodations could be improved, and a need for more bylaw enforcement officers. There were several comments suggesting that the hours of operation be extended to evenings, and particularly evenings on weekends for this purpose. There was also a need for more RCMP officers noted. The average satisfaction level for the RCMP online crime reporting system was 74%. I think this is some good news. This is a new system that I believe just came online in the last couple of months. The average level of satisfaction for wait times on the non-emergency phone line was 50%, and the average level of satisfaction with customer service for the RCMP was 80%. A big thank you to everyone who participated in the surveys, submitted their thoughts and questions to council, and for all of those who have joined us on the public participation sessions today. And with that, I will stop my screen sharing and open it up to questions. Looks like we now have one member of the public joined us. I will keep an eye on the chat field in case anyone would like to share their question through the chat. Just checking to see if we've received any email questions. Looks like nothing new has come in during the first presentation. Are there any questions from Mayor Seegers or Councillor Lamb?
No, thank you.
We've been through this once already, and we can pass it over to Director Douglas, who can share his presentation, which came forward at the March 31st special committee of the whole meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Polson. So I'll be going through the presentation that we presented the Committee of the Whole last week, and at the end I have a couple extra slides on some of the requests to change a couple items in the budget from the committee. So just a highlight of our sewer system in the pinkish color on the screen. That's the area we're talking about with regards to sewer. Included in this is our consolidated sewer operating fund revenues and expenses. As you can see at the bottom in the red circle, we're showing a $632,000 surplus, or an amount that's available for capital. And so just remember that number, because we're going to talk about it again a little bit later. Just simplifying the all the numbers into just 4 or 5 lines here. Revenues of 4.4 million, and this is consolidated as well. Expenses of 2.8 million, showing net operating surplus of 1.6 million. Then we take out transfers and debt payments and $1 million, and leaves us with that surplus, or the amount available for capital, of 632,000. This is just the collections and treatment area. So the surplus is being created from the sewer collections and treatment, and it is intended, the 632 is intended to be spent on collections and treatment. And so I'm just showing, I'm going to be showing this separate here. So the sewer and collection and treatment revenues, 3.7 million. Expenses, 2.5 million. Transfers and amortization, debt payments, 562,000, leaving that 632,000. This is the septage operation. So this is basically our Dusty Road septage area. Estimating revenues at 730,000, expenses at 283,000. Transfers that were debt payments. So this is mostly transfers, 446,000, leaving zero deficit, zero surplus. These are the one-time costs that we are needing to include into the budget this year. We've been through these a number of times, so I was going to spend a lot of time on this slide. But for sewer ongoing, and these are just the ongoing costs for 249,600, and this is for the sewer septic or sewer collection and treatment area. On the next slide here, we have a few more costs. We have the top area there is for the septage, and we have a part-time operator that we were looking at. However, that one item we are not including in the budget at this time. I have a little more work to do before we'll include it. But we do have two other items that we're going to be including for the septic area for one-time or ongoing costs. And then at the bottom, we have one-time costs. And once again, these are for the sewer and treatment and collection area, $56,000. And then we have capital here. And really, we're focusing on the 2021 capital at this point. We have a couple projects that are being carried over from 2020 into 2021. We had applied for a grant for the Wakefield lift station. We have not heard yet whether we're successful on that or not, so it will stay in the budget. Trail Avenue, Force Main, just a small amount carried over from last year. This year, we have a number of items. Additional membrane filters for $96,000. And water resource chemical storage facility for $350,000. Multiplication unit replacement for $250,000. Spare pumps for $10,000. SCADA, the lift station telemetry, $122,000.
Sorry to interrupt, Director Douglas. Your
Yes.
Sound is cutting out a little bit. If there's any way you can speak maybe towards your microphone, I think it might help.
I will also turn off my my video. Okay. Okay, is that better?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, just tell me if it's not. We have a couple of maintenance holes, 3 maintenance holes to be exact, that need to be replaced on top of the 3 that we need to do on Trail Avenue. So that's $150,000, and the ones on Trail Avenue, $171,000. And we've added a project at the end. We have 2 or 3 waste water meters that we need to replace or improve, and so we put that in the budget. That's a bit of a later capital item that we've added. So then we have the septage area. We have solids. We have some solids drying on the ground up at the Dusty Road area, and we need to dispose of those. We're estimating that to be $500,000. Septage closure plan or septic plan going forward, $150,000, and roof replacement at Dusty Road for a total of $28,000. So you can see all these projects are being funded from the septic reserve, $678,000. So once again, just highlighting the projects for 2021 only, adds up for the treatment and collection area of $2.23 million. Funding sources here, you can see the sewage user fees, 632. That's the number that was on the first page. And there is an update to that, but I'll show you that at the end where council would like to divert some of that funding from somewhere else. And that's we are in the works of doing that. And just a close up of the 1 year for the septic project. Comes to 678 in total and being funded from the septic reserve. Some of the reserves that are associated with sewer, we have a sewer accumulated surplus in the amount of $397,000. We have a public works yard reserve. It resides in the sewer fund for $835,000. We have the future sewer or capital reserve sitting currently at $157,000. Septic reserve currently sitting at $335,000. Both of those we're planning to add a little bit of funds to those this year and then spend some of it, as you can see. And this is where, you know, the 678 here comes out of the septic reserve at the bottom. We have a sewer committed expenditures reserve. This is primarily used to carry over operating costs from 1 year to another. And we'll be accumulating some of our ongoing costs in here as well. That we will do. We'll do the work every 2 to 3 years usually. So we accumulate small amounts of money for a couple of years, and then we do the project. One of the items that is included in here is the UV light system at the Water Resource Center. That's a project we do every number of years, and we accumulate money here, smaller amounts over 4 or 5 years, and then we do the job. And then another fund that's available to us is the Community Works Reserve Fund. In here, there's $177,000 that's being spent. Sorry, $171,000 is being spent in the sewer area. That's just one of the numbers that makes up this 1.481 million. And then we have the sewer DCC's development cost charges. Current balance 2.1 million. We're estimating we'll get a small increase to that this year, and we're withdrawing about 252,000 for capital for 2020. When we presented this to the committee of the whole last week, we were looking at an increase of $113 to user fees for residential, $70 for a senior citizens apartment rate, and the commercial rate at $239,000. With that, the parcel taxes would remain at the current number of $274,000. So this slide is very similar to the first slide in the fact that this is the consolidated sewer and septic budget. But we've loaded all the capital in here now and all the funding sources. And you can see that the number at the bottom is zero. It used to say $632,000 surplus, but it's zero. As we intended to spend that 632 on capital. Once again, just simplifying it into 5 numbers here. Total revenues 5.3, expenses 2.8, transfers 378,000, and then we've got the capital number at the bottom, $2.9 million. That's consolidated, of course. And then I break this down into the collections and treatment from the septage. So the revenues $4.6 million, expenses 2.5, transfers and debt and principal payments in total or netted out is 147,000. And then there's your capital number that we saw earlier, the $2.2 million, creating zero deficit, zero surplus for collections and treatment. Septage, basically, the revenue 730, expenses 283. The bigger changes here happen in the transfers to and from reserves and debt payments line, and then we have capital in there, and there's zero surplus and zero deficit. So in conclusion, in this fund, we, overall, we still struggle a little bit with the funding level in the sewer operating fund. We have included a number of projects that need to be completed in 2021, whether they're new, one-time or ongoing or capital. They're all important to keep the system running at the best that we can make it run. Proposed increase, $113, sewer user fees, capital $2.9 million, plan for 2021, and the addition of 1 part-time staff to the Water Resource Center. After the presentation, we talked with the Committee of the Whole, and we requested that we have a couple of items be pre-approved. That would be the chemical storage facility for $350,000 and maintenance holes for $150,000. The reason for the second request was we already have 3 maintenance holes being replace and to do 6 all in one go just makes a lot of sense, and hopefully there'll be some potential to save a little bit of money, but it makes it most efficient to do them together. So this here is the as you can see, it's got updated here. What is it updated to? So the Committee of the Whole recommended to Council that instead of the maintenance hole being funded from sewer reserve, that it be funded from the gas tax revenue. We're given notice, I'm going to say just over a week ago, that our contribution from the federal government for gas tax contribution, it's called a community works funding, is going to double in 2021. And so that allows us to cost coverage and maybe a few more projects than what we had planned in the beginning. And so the council made that recommendation that we use those funds. So between now and when we start working on the bylaws, we hope to hear and confirm that this will happen this year. And as soon as it's confirmed, then we'll be able to include council's request for the change in funding. So what that does is it reduces the amount of revenue or user fees that we would be bringing in. And it increases the transfer from reserves. So if you were to look at this sheet from above, the revenues here are down from above by 150,000 above. And the transfer from reserves is up 150,000, and the capital number is still the same. And so what does that look? So how does that look from a reserve perspective? We would be increasing our transfer or withdrawal for capital from the Community Works Reserve. As you can see, I've doubled. So normally we get just over $500,000 from the federal provincial gas tax contribution. So I've doubled that here. I've added the 150 into withdrawals for capital, gives us a new ending balance. And then how does it look within for fees? Well, it would be an $84 increase to user fees rather than 113. The senior citizen department rate would be 52, and the commercial rate would be 177. And once again, the parcel tax is so Carrie Ann, that's the presentation that we had last week for council, or committee of the whole, and with the added slides just to update the community on some of the requests of the committee.
Fantastic. Thank you, Director Douglas. And we can open it up for questions. We currently have one member of the public in attendance on our Zoom meeting. We haven't received any new questions via email during the presentation. Just double check here. And I'm just checking our chat to see if any new questions have popped up in there. Otherwise, if there are any questions from mayor or councillors who are in attendance on the Zoom, please feel free to speak up.
I think Councillor Lamb has a question.
Yeah, I was just wondering about utilities, like the electrical and the water. And is that a fairly consistent bill every year kind of thing, or is it, or does that vary much?
Well, it is both. It is consistent usually. However, the increases have been over, like for hydro, let's say over the last number of years have been, fairly sizable. But we don't use, any more hydro than we have in the past. And water's in the same boat, that we're fairly consistent with the amount we use, but the rates have been creeping up over the years.
And the solar system on there, is it fairly maintenance free, or does it, is there a way of checking how much power that contributes to the facility?
Yeah, I'm not privy to that at this point, but certainly that's something we can probably find more information on.
Thank you. We received a couple of new questions through the chat here. The first is for Mr. Douglas. Have any additional grant monies been approved since March 31st, or being approved and received since March 31st?
No more have been approved. No.
Okay. And the next is for Director Dillon. Have you received clarification on the qualification of the SCADA for inclusion as a gas tax, or bracket community works fund?
Yeah, SCADA would qualify under the gas tax funding. It's just a matter of what Director Douglas deems as the best fund to use. We might have other projects slated for gas tax funding, but SCADA would qualify for that. It's in the program guidelines.
Great, thank you. If there aren't any other questions, I would be happy to share some of the questions we received through our surveys. I'm just double checking to see if we received anything new via email or if our participants online have any more questions. Please feel free to share those in the chat or just speak up. And not seeing anything new on email. Nobody's got their hands up. And nothing new in the chat. Okay, one of the questions that our citizens shared through our parks survey was they noted that the Parks Department is asking for more staff, and we're curious if they wouldn't have more time if they weren't using their phones so much. And this person had mentioned they see our park staff in Davis Bay on their phones quite a bit. So I'm happy for the opportunity to share some information about that, because as part of our asset management planning, we are actually implementing a new electronic geographical information system that tracks all of our infrastructure, which includes everything from garbage cans to garden beds to the micro irrigation systems, which are installed along the Davis Bay walkway. And that data is actually uploaded through a mobile app that allows us to pinpoint the exact geographical location of these assets down to, I believe, a few centimeters. So it's a really helpful way for us to be able to track those assets, and being able to use a mobile app to do that is quite an efficient way to get the data into the system. So if you do see them on their phones, they're actually just doing their job. But thank you for the inquiry and for the opportunity to clarify that. Director
I could
Dilla.
add a little bit to that that is a fairly new system for us here at the District of Sechelt. And so we are trying to build our asset base knowledge, and with photographs and with condition, information. And so, yeah, they will be out there doing that for sure.
Thank you. Another question that we received multiple times through the park survey is with respect to pickleball, and will there be any new pickleball courts this year? Currently, there are no plans to build a new pickleball court within the District of Sechelt. However, we have received a proposal from the Sunshine Coast Pickleball Association they would like to lease a portion of a district-owned property to build a series of pickleball courts. However, there have been several other requests and suggestions for the use of this site. The site is called Lot 10. It's up near Kinnickinnick. And all the options for Lot 10 will need to be considered before any decisions can be made about the ongoing land use for that area. Some of the other uses include lacrosse. We had applied for a grant for the construction of a new district-owned childcare facility. And there have been a few other suggestions for that area as well. So recognizing that pickleball is gaining more and more popularity, especially on the Sunshine Coast, Council is aware that those requests are there, but a detailed land use planning assessment has been requested for the larger area and is needed for Council to be able to make an informed decision. We should hear back on the Childcare BC New Spaces grant applications soon. However, as Council is in the processes of establishing the 2021 budget, the land use planning assessment for Lot 10 and the surrounding area is not currently on the 2021 work plan. So with all of these competing priorities for the planning department this year, we look to Council's direction in establishing those project priorities. Also noting that additional staff have been requested in the planning department for 2021. Not seeing any other new questions. We do have about 11 minutes left here. And we still have one member of the public in attendance. Thank you for sticking with us. And we encourage your questions as always.
Were there any questions that came through on the sewer survey?
The sewer survey, the ones that were the most prevalent were around the question on sewer expansion and how much people would be willing to pay to support a more of a structured sewer expansion. program. So I believe that the results there were kind of a split between, let me just pull up that slide. So 30% of the respondents had indicated that they would be willing to pay $166 per year or more, and 40% would prefer not to consider the sewer expansion program in 2021. 26% felt that it should not be considered in the 5-year financial plan at all. Most of the other questions and comments were just related to some of the things I had already mentioned in support of the Sani station and in support of looking into reclaimed water for outdoor use. I don't have all of the questions right in front of me right now, though.
Thank you. Perhaps you could ask Director Dillon, with regards to the Sani Dump, what is our process for actually moving the project forward? Because I know there's work that staff have to do behind the scenes and all of that.
So the permitting and construction of the Sani station is the straightforward part. It's not a very involved thing to construct. The hardest part is going to be selecting the location. Staff are currently preparing a detailed report, which is going to look at 6 different sites. We're going to score each site based on, I believe, 10 objective criteria. So it's just going to be on a straight numbers, apples to apples comparison for each site. We'll present the report with a presentation to council. We're just working on the final touches of that report. And council has the option to choose the site we've recommended or suggest an alternative site that we can move forward with. But it will be it won't just be a matter of us picking the site.
I look forward to that. I know this is a long time coming. I know there's one of our previous counselors actually on very much top of mind for him. So he'll be excited that this is actually moving forward. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I'm just looking through some of the questions and comments on that sewer survey now, Mayor Seegers, and most of them are just comments supporting reclaimed water and promoting other potential cost savings ideas, checking in as Councillor Lamb did on the solar panels, which we do have that data, but as Director Douglas mentioned, it's just not at hand at the current moment. And yeah, just general questions about where sewer expansion would go next. And I know that we're working on prioritizing the various planning avenues for that now.
So probably another piece that we want to remind the community about is that the septage receiving area up on Dusty Road, it's not on land that we currently own. So that's on lease land. We have a lease with the province, which expires in 2031. So might sound like a long time away, but that's 10 years. And we know that these kinds of huge capital projects for infrastructure like this can take some time. So in our budget, you'll notice that we have $150,000 put away to start that process. We don't know whether or not we'll be able to retain the lease or if the facility needs to move somewhere else. So we need to do the background work in sufficient time so that whatever infrastructure we need to put in place, we actually have looked at the alternatives and have a plan, because currently we don't. So having a plan is a good thing.
That's for sure. Thank you, Mayor Seegers. We did have a few other questions from surveys. I'll just do a quick check around the table here. No hands up. I'm not seeing any new comments in the chat. Looks like no additional questions via email either. Oh, I guess I should let everyone know if you do have questions, please send them to finance@seashelt.ca. So looking at our public works survey, there were several comments on the need for line painting in some of our roads in Sechelt. And the question was, when will the annual line painting program be starting? So I had checked with our public works supervisor, our public works manager on that, and it will be starting this spring, but as always, it is subject to weather. So as soon as we get a stretch of weather, they are going to be starting on that program. Another question.
Sorry, I'm just going to add to that. Weather is one consideration for sure. The other one that's probably more controlling is contractor availability. We always expect every contractor to drop everything and come to the District of Sechelt, but that's not always the case in the real world. So yes, weather is a part of it, but it is subject to what the contractor can fit into their schedule and when we're in the queue.
Thank you, Director Dillon. One question we did receive through social media was with respect to equipment disposal. And in particular, it was, will the district consider donating their old computers when they get new ones? I guess this is related to the COVID recovery money that's being used for some of our IT systems. So the district actually has to follow specific equipment disposal processes. And for equipment that does not contain data storage devices, it can be disposed through a transparent public process, such as a community auction. And I believe we do have a few items that are being considered for auction. However, it'll depend on staff work plans and other priorities, whether the timing on when we can get that going. However, for equipment like laptops, hard drives must be extracted and destroyed according to legislated requirements to ensure the protection of privacy and sensitive information. The extraction and disposal of these data storage devices, including hard drives, can be very time consuming. So the district, and then once you've extracted any sensitive information, disposing of laptops that are missing parts is actually a little bit more difficult than selling functioning computer equipment as well. So to save staff time and maximize the potential for revenue for equipment sales, the District of Sechelt uses a provincial service that does the work for us for a fee. The provincial service is authorized by the province to handle the data storage devices that may contain personal information or other confidential information. And they provide documentation to confirm that each device has been appropriately handled and destroyed. The service also then handles the auctioning of the equipment and returns, I believe it's 66% of the revenue to the District of Sechelt. Director Douglas, did you have any comments or anything to add on that inquiry?
No, you're right on there about not selling, our equipment right into the public. It's there's certain risks inherent in the computer equipment for sure.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. However, I do believe one day we may get an auction scheduled, and we may have some crab traps in there. Okay, I do have a couple of other questions that we've received over the last couple of months. We've got 2 minutes remaining. Were there any final questions or comments from any of our participants? I'm not seeing any hands up. Mayor Seegers or Councillor Lamb, did you have anything, any closing remarks?
Just always is amazing how much information you have in your head about all these various different processes.
Well, thank you. Well, for this last one, I see we have Ms. Rogers with us still, so I'm going to pass it over to her. One of the questions we had received was acknowledging the district's website is hard to navigate, but why would it cost $100,000 to fix it?
Because we're not going to fix it. We're going to throw it in the garbage. So we budgeted at 100,000 because we also have a lot of online payments that we would like to be able to do and online applications. So our community investment program at present everybody fills in a form, they scan, they upload. There's a time-consuming process for the applicants, and there's a time-consuming process for staff. Whereas if we had an online application form, it would be that much easier. And I don't mean an online, a fillable PDF. I mean an actual form. So if you don't fill in this blank, you get a message back to you, so that when applications come to us, they're complete. The same thing for things like building permits. Anything else where the district is asking you to complete a form, if we can put that form online, it will be a much easier process for the people filling out the forms and for staff. Also mapping. If you're driving down the road and you see a great big development sign, you were driving, so you didn't stop and read it. Wouldn't it be great to be able to go to a map on the website, click on it, and get all of the information about what that development is all about? So there's a lot of things that we can do to make it the website better for our citizens, so that they can find information easier. I can't find information on our website, so I can't imagine what it's like for a citizen who just wants to know when garbage day is. So hopefully we will be able to design a website that has better navigation. We will be spending a lot of time rewriting all of the information to make it clearer, more understandable, fill in all of the missing pieces, correct broken links and things like that, but also create a lot of things that you can do online. We will never replace the give us a phone call. That give us a phone call will always be a thing where you can get information that way. But for a lot of people, getting their information online is preferable, and we want to make that as easy for them as possible.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ms. Rogers. And we're looking forward to the improved website also being a little bit more user-friendly for staff. That'll save us a lot of staff time with some of our updates and sharing information on all of our upcoming projects and programs.
Absolutely. A lot less tears from the staff trying to update the website.
Okay, and if that brings us to 1 o'clock. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today and for all the participation that we've had in this 2021 budget process.
I just like to take a second and thank you, Carrie Ann.
Oh, you are most welcome.
You put a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of effort into these meetings, and it's appreciated. My
pleasure. Thank you for that.
I want to reiterate as well that this has been, I mean, it was a lot of work on your part and on the part of staff, but it's made the information much more available, and we have had a lot more community interaction than we've ever had in the past. And I've been around here for 9 years now, hard to believe. So I mean, it was a lot of work, and it's a template that we can just build on for years to come. So thank you all, Mr. Douglas as well, Julie, all staff who took part. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.